You're on board KCAA's Inland Talk Express. KCAA, Loma Linda, 1050 AM, the station that leaves no listener behind. NBC Radio News is KCAA News Talk 1050, the Inland Talk Express.
Hello and welcome to Let's Go Shopping with Bev. This show brought to you by Starflight Entertainment. Music by Dr. Bombay and the Blue Machine Band. Song title, Living in Paradise. Now here's Bev.
The show, everybody. And believe it or not, this is the first show for the new year. We're already in 2013. I don't know where 12 went. Does anybody know where 12 went yet?
All I can say is good riddance.
Yeah.
By the wayside.
By the wayside. So all three of us are in agreement. We're glad 12 is done.
I'm ready for a fresh start myself.
Yes. Bobby, are you ready for a fresh start?
Absolutely. I love odd-numbered years.
Yeah, you always were an oddball anyway. And today we have kind of an interesting show for everybody. Last week, as you know, Aaron was with us, and Don and Marie from God Paint, some other people, and we were talking about getting ready for the new year. And we're going to extend that a little bit farther this week. And we have Bob Bishop with us from Exit Inland Realtor. I knew Bob for how many thousands of years now?
It's been at least a century. No, not
yes,
quite that.
Yeah, it's been that long.
At least a couple decades.
Yes.
We'll make it sound real big.
It was gigantic.
That's right.
Right. And like I said, I knew Bob and Randy for a long time. I really enjoy the company and what they stand for. So I brought Bobby in. We're going to be talking about housing and the new tax law and all of that stuff. And in the middle of it, we have a special guest that's going to be calling in from Anaheim. You're going to have to wait for that. Also, we have Elaine. Woo! Yes, from Smart Health Talk. Our food lady is back, and we're going to finish talking about food.
Oh, hey, I can talk about that for hours. It's my favorite subject, so just feel free to ask me anything you want.
Yeah.
You guys are going to make me hungry. That's all I know.
Yes, well, we're always hungry. Food is our favorite thing. So without further ado, we got a couple other call-outs that we're going to be doing through the program. So get comfortable. If you're driving, make sure your hands are on the steering wheel, that you don't get that comfortable, that you have your pillow and your blankie and fall asleep, because you could get a boo-boo that way. And, so let's get started without further ado. So, Bob, what is new in the real estate section now, since we're 4 days into the new year?
Well, there are some changes as of January 1st. Probably the main one for folks that may be in distress with their property is that, believe it or not, as part of the fiscal cliff deal, they were able to extend the Mortgage Debt Relief Act for another year. What that means is that if you get a loan modification or a short sale or something like that, a foreclosure on your house, and the bank forgives a certain portion of the mortgage, if they didn't extend it, you would have had to pay income tax on that money as if it was income.
Really?
Whereas now, because of this law that was extended, originally was started by George Bush, by the way, you can get a principal reduction or do a short sale, and the money that that's being forgiven by the bank, you won't be taxed on unless you use the money to buy toys and have fun. If you use the money to put into your house to improve your house or things like that, then you're eligible to not have to pay income tax on that. But if you went out and went on vacation and bought a bunch of toys and new cars and everything like that, they don't allow you to forgive.
Well, that's not very fair.
How do you prove that? Do you just prove that because you didn't have any purchases?
They would probably, the IRS, I'm sure, wants to see receipts of what you did with the money. What
if you just paid bills?
Well, then you'd be able to prove that by the fact that the statements that you have show that you paid those bills. So.
Okay.
But they don't want to be giving people tax relief that we're just taking the money and squandering it, more or less, rather than putting it into their house and fixing it up and those kind of things.
Well, the reason I ask is because I did actually go through that whole process and saved $60,000.
Yeah.
So,
good for you.
Yeah, I couldn't even believe it. It took a year to get through the whole thing because there would be like little things that they wouldn't tell you that you needed to get done, and that's what I finally got hip to. And so I kept calling them, even especially when you got near the deadline, and I kept saying, is there anything else that I need to be sending you? Is there anything else that I forgot to do? And because if you don't have every single piece of information completed as needed, then you don't qualify.
That's exactly right.
And so that when you're working with the government, you have to just keep asking them over and over again because it's almost like they set you up to fail and you can't allow them to do that to you.
Yep, that's absolutely right.
And it worked. I tell you, I got, they reduced my monthly payment from like $2,000 to $800, forgave $60,000 of the money that I owed $200,000, and it went down to $140,000. My payment went from $2,000 a month to $800 a month. And I only owed $140,000 instead of $200,000. I was like, oh my gosh! Once they reduced my interest rate to like something like 4%, it was just fantastic. It was the best thing ever. But you have to be willing to go through the process to do every single thing that they tell you to do.
Well, the other thing is, too, is you have to watch out because there's a lot of people out there that will tell you they can do that for you, and they'll have you write them a fat check. And then they will do nothing. They
tried to get me to do that. Those people tried to suck me into that.
I
ran across them, and they were trying to get me to give them. It was like $2,000 or $4,000, and I almost like got sucked into it. And then what I did is I called it was like the government assistance programs, and they had me do like a survey and get registered with them, and they checked me out, and none of that cost me anything.
Yeah, I think that's called HOPE.
Yeah. I think that was it.
Yeah.
And I worked with those people, and I didn't have to pay anyone anything.
Well, that is great because right now, in fact, they just reinforced the state law that says that nobody, including attorneys, can ask for money up front to do a loan modification.
I'm glad.
But there's still lots of people out there that are trying all the time.
I can imagine how many people got, and that could have been like the last money, that could have been the money that you needed to be able to really stay in your house and get through the whole process where you could keep your house.
That's
but
exactly
they took
right.
your money, and then there you are left with nothing.
Yep.
That's sad.
Well, shame on those people.
There are those shysters out there, Beverly. Let me tell you, they are out there trying to steal people's money.
Okay, so Bob, if that happens to somebody, how do you get to them? What do you do? What do you say?
Well, I mean, if it's an attorney you give the money to and they don't do something, you can go to the Bar Association and file a complaint against them. Likewise, if it's a real estate person, you could go to the Department of Real Estate. If it's a person who's just an everyday person that's claiming they can do these things and asking for money, that would probably be something you'd either have to go to the district attorney about and or sue them in small claims court for your money back.
See, you learn something new every day.
Small claims court, I had nothing but bad experiences. I had someone total my car. I had a $5,000 judgment. I tell you that girl, man, she knew how to hide. She knew how to hide.
Well,
I could not get $1 from her.
You can get the judgment, but getting the money or getting
That's
the judgment
right.
process is the hardest part. That's right.
It is. I mean, you got to like hire a detective or something. And actually, I did get a detective to track her down, but she was being like some sort of topless dancer or something. I wasn't going to get any money out of her.
No, you're not going to get her wages garnished.
That sounds like another good story that we have to come back on in another day.
That's right. Now, there are some other changes. As of January 1st, the state of California had just passed the Homeowners Bill of Rights. And there's several things that are important on that. If you're in negotiations with the bank for a loan modification or a short sale, in the past, the bank would continue on one track processing your foreclosure, and on the other track, they'd be talking with you about the loan modification or the short sale. And both would be running simultaneously at the same time, and many times the right hand doesn't know what the left hand is doing at some of these banks. So what happens is people's house would go to foreclosure, even though the other department was telling them that they qualified for the loan modification or the short sale. So the new Homeowners Bill of Rights puts an end to that. If there's if there's a loan modification application in effect, then they absolutely have to stop the foreclosure proceedings until the person gets a final yes or no on their loan modification or their short sale.
No kidding.
Yes.
So that's pretty good. So let's say, for instance, Joe Baloney. Let's pick on the Baloney family.
Okay. They're full of it.
Right, they are. They really are. Joe Baloney hires Mr. Mustard, all right, for his realtor.
Yeah.
And Joe Baloney thinks Mr. Mustard is he didn't do his homework. He believed what the guy said. The guy, fooled around, and bada bing, bada boom, the poor guy's in deep trouble. And Mr. Mustard is long gone. They can't find him no more. So what Joe Baloney can go to court and find this guy and get his money back.
He can try, absolutely, yeah. And if they're, if they are, as I said, an attorney or an agent or something like that, they can also go to the licensing authorities and try and get their ability to be able to make a living taken away as a result of their fraud. Yeah.
Garnish their wages.
Yeah, that's possible too, to get your money back if you can find them.
Yeah, if you can find them, take the piggy bank. Maybe. And during all of this, and you have enough evidence, and you are in the court and stuff, can you and your new lawyer put a lien on the other guy's property, put a lien on their bank account or whatever until this thing is cleared up?
Well, first you have to get a judgment
in
court, and then you can put liens and things like that on.
The whole thing.
There's also what they call les pendens, whereas if you're involved in a lawsuit that has to do with real estate, you could actually freeze that real estate, like in the case of if you had a judgment, you could freeze that real estate with a les pendens where they couldn't sell it until the lawsuit that you had against them was resolved.
So see, folks, there are answers out there. You just have to call Bob and his partner Randy at Exit Inland Realtor.
Yeah.
The coolest realtor person ever. I'm not saying that just because he's a friend of mine.
Right before
and their show is on Thursday.
Yeah, right before. We always pass each other on Thursdays at 4 o'clock. When I come on, they're going off.
We are ships passing in the night.
Every week.
That's Real Estate Talk with Bob and Randy every Thursday from 3 until 4. I know Bev wants me to put a plug in there, and if you do want to call us and you have any questions on real estate, 951-300-1010.
One more time.
951-300-1010.
You save people money. That's one thing that I know, and I can't even imagine the stress that those people must have been going through, having those two things going at once, not sure, living every single day, not sure what's going to happen to you.
I know, that's scary.
I had one client, she had mother of 6, a registered nurse over at the county hospital in Riverside. She gave money to an attorney. Well, first off, she got her hours cut back at work, which she didn't have any control over. Then she went to an attorney to have them negotiate a loan modification, gave him $3,000 or $4,000. After a couple of months, they weren't returning her calls, and they were out of business, so she lost that money. Then she went to the Fair Housing Council of Riverside County. They were working and negotiating with the bank for her, and everything they were telling her is, you're a perfect candidate, you're great, everything will be fine. She went home one day and found a notice to move on her door that they'd already foreclosure sold her house, and that she had to be out in 3 days.
Wow, I know how lucky I was.
She had put $70,000, her life savings, down on this house to buy it to begin with. Then,
oh my gosh!
Then within less than a year, 6-8 months after all this happened, they upped her hours and she started working full time again. But in the meantime, she lost the house. So she's going through some of the opportunities that they have for reviews on those kind of things, and she may be able to get some compensation back for it. But that's a perfect example of why the dual tracking works against the homeowner. And it's like having a knife held above your head. You miss one payment, you're out of your house.
That's the way I was picturing it.
And I know other people that are like that are infirm, that have disabilities and things like that, and they've had to actually take money out for medical reasons, and now they're under the loan modification with the bank, and it's the same thing. If the bank tells them, you miss one payment, you're out. So it's a lot of stress, and especially for people that have disabilities and infirmities and health problems and things like that.
And they're already sick and immune compromised.
The last thing that they need is more stress.
Well, hopefully with the new year here,